Let's move on. Let's talk about the Missouri Tigers, a team that loses Blake Baker over to LSU, loses three NFL draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. But when I say they return like every single player on the offensive side of the ball, they actually do. The only guy that they don't get back pretty much is Javon Foster, but then they get
Cody
Katie Reed.
Schrader. Cody Schrader.
Oh, okay, Cody Schrader. But okay, yeah, that was pretty blasphemous for me to say. But Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel, I think in the aggregate can make up the production that Cody Schrager had. I mean, Cody Schrager was a D2 guy that kind of climbed up the ranks there. And while he was
It's
really
really good.
good, I also thought the offensive line was really good. And I think the offensive line is going
Yes.
to be really good again. And I think Marcus Carroll's really good. And I think Marcus Carroll's going to run for 1,000 yards.
Hmm.
Or Nate Noel, I guess, whoever comes out of that room. Both Sunbelt guys, but I have a lot of confidence in that running back room. Sorry. But then we need to get ahead of ourselves here. We could talk about the quarterback situation. Uh, I mean, when I say situation, I just mean it's Brady Cook, and he
Yeah.
exceeded everyone's expectations last year by a wide margin, including mine. The guy who I thought Jeff Garcia was going to win the job. I really did. Up until SEC Media Days, when they brought Brady Cook to SEC Media Days, I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess Brady Cook probably won this job. We'll see how long he holds on to it. And yeah, he just put the pedal to the metal, man. He was awesome.
He's been here for a while now, and it finally settled in, right, for um Drink to get his quarterback. I mean, he had Connor Bazelak, he had Brady Cook, even I guess in 2023, or I'm sorry, 2022, Brady Cook was very inconsistent, right? I mean, you didn't quite, I mean, he did some nice things for you, obviously, but there's a reason why they brought in some competition. They had Sam Horn as a high recruit, right? Everyone was kind of just waiting for him to get beat out, and he didn't, and he won the job. And you beat Kansas State last year, and then you kind of catapult yourself into a really successful season in the SEC and top that off with a, BCS, or I guess what, um, you know, what is that, New Year's Six bowl win against Ohio State and the Cotton Bowl. I mean, it was awesome. I really like the development he took. 3,300 yards, right? 21 touchdowns, only six interceptions. He took a good amount of sacks, but not too much. And he's not like this elite athlete, so I don't expect him to be able to avoid everything. But I mean, he was able to find his targets, his talented targets, rely on a guy like the running game of Cody Schrader, and really just settle into the offense of Drinkwitch. I think it helped him being there for what, 4 seasons now with Drink, and I think this might be Cook's fifth year. So it'll be interesting to see, how much, if he can even improve from this year to last year, or yes, from last year to this year.
Yeah. You, I mean, so if he goes down though, right? Are you trusting Drew Pine to win a lot of football games?
Well, no, no. But if he needs a spot start, if he needs to take over half or something, where you're playing Auburn or whatever at home, and you're up, 7 points at half, and Cook rolled his ankle. Yeah, I don't think it's crazy that Pine could win you that game, but I do think there's a significant difference between Brady Cook and Drew Pine, and that speaks to the development of Brady Cook, like I was talking about.
Right. A problem with the depth of this quarterback room is that Sam Horn, back in February, had to go undergo Tommy John surgery because he's also a pitcher for Missouri as well. So he'll be out for the entire season, and he missed obviously this baseball season. I don't know if he'll be back for baseball season next year. My hopes would be that he is,
Listen,
but
real quick about that. If I'm sorry and I'm Drinkowich, and you're next spring, right? And you graduate Brady Cook, right? And you've just seen enough of Drew Pine. I mean, Sam Horn's probably going to be one of your, you know, top options for that spot. And I think you got to have him. I mean, it's not like John Rice Plumlee where he's just this freak athlete and he can walk onto either field and just kind of out athlete people. Sam Horn, I think, is a really talented kid, and you got to keep that development going. It sucks that he's hurt, missing those valuable reps, but next spring is going to be a big year of development for him. And especially after getting hurt in the baseball season, I don't know why I'm spending so much time on Sam Horn, but I think that'd be
Missouri
interesting.
sucks at baseball, by the way. They stink at baseball. At least y'all have your football team right now, Tiger fans. So there you go. Something to look forward to. At the running back spot, we already talked about it. Marcus Carroll, Nate Noel, both coming in over from the Sun Belt. Marcus Carroll coming in from Georgia State with 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns. Nate Noel coming in from Appalachian State, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. Both of them well over 150 carries, with Marcus Carroll having 271 last year. Talk about tread on the tires. Some Mo Ibrahim numbers.
Well, first of all, Missouri, I mean, they leaned on Schrader too. He had 276 in the SEC. Now, I think if Carroll gets 270 again, I think one of two things, right? Obviously, he's a talented player. We both like him a lot. He did great things for Georgia State in a run heavy scheme there. But either that or just Noel, Jamal Robb, like nobody else kind of was able to give him that spell. I think ideally you're bringing in two guys that you potentially really like. You've got Jamal Roberts coming back in year two. I think you'd like to be able to keep Carroll fresh. I think he's going to be the feature back. That's what I would expect. He can still get, 40% of the carries, 45% of the carries, but I do think if you're an ideal situation for Drinkwitz, one of Nate Noel, Jamal Roberts, or even Tavoris Jones, some guy on the back towards the back of the bench gives you some kind of production to have depth in that room.
Yeah, I don't think this is one of the. I'll put it in the middle range. If you're to tier out the running back rooms of each SEC team, I would put it in like a middle tier. These are two really good running backs, though. So don't let that fool you, right? Don't let the Sun Belt fool you from these running backs. Like running backs can come from everywhere. That's the thing we know about running backs. They can come from anywhere. And as long as you have a good offensive line, which we'll talk about in just a minute, it doesn't matter a ton. It matters a little bit. It doesn't matter a ton. Wide receiver room, though, yeah. I mean, you get your four top receivers returning from last year. Luther Burden, who had 120 targets, will be a first-round draft pick probably this year. Theo Weiss, who was exceptional last year, kind of living up to that 5-star kind of rating that he had coming out of high school. I mean, Mookie Cooper, dude, this is it the best wide receiver room in the SEC? It's close. I
It's,
think your top
I
three,
think
maybe.
Yeah, well, I wonder if the depth of Georgia room, but regardless, though, at least known commodities, the upside in this room too is there. Not only just depth and experience returning, but like you said, the upside is there. Obviously, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, the monster. I want to highlight a guy like Marquise Johnson, right? Deep threat. I mean, he averaged almost 30 yards per catch last year. And now, is that sustainable if you increase that volume? Absolutely not, right? But he still played really well as a true freshman to do that in the SEC. Very, very encouraging. And obviously, you give a brain like Eli Drinkwitz, that kind of talent, that kind of speed, the sky's the limit, right? Obviously, especially when you have Burden and Weiss, even Norfleet, right? You're at the tight end room, uh, to take away other, eyes of the defense and scheme those guys out. But you leave Marcus Johnson, you got Joshua Manning, a guy I really like, 4-star kid from Missouri. They like him, but the reality is this room's so deep, he doesn't even have to play yet, right? And which is just awesome.
So wide receiver was the only position aside from tight end on the team that they did not go get a single transfer. So I'm going to use my investigative skills there and make an assumption and think that this team feels really good about the wide receiver room, which obviously they should because it's the same wide receiver room that was incredible last year. But you're right, like there's still some rooms for some target, some room. There's room for targets aside from Luther Burden and Theo Weiss. Like you said, Marquise Johnson, Mekhi Miller played some last year. This wide receiver room is fantastic. It really is. It's a shame that Ryan Wingo is not there. It really is because I mean, holy cow, that wide receiver room would
Wouldn't that be
be
fun?
crazy.
That'd be 3 5 stars, 3 5 stars in that room.
Yeah, I mean that loaded, loaded. I mean, so the tight end room, it's pretty young for the most part, aside from Tyler Stevens. I don't think it matters too much, to be honest. what the tight end room looks like. Just get us some blockers. I don't think any of these guys are exceptional blockers, but uh, Brett Norfleet did have 22 targets last year. Tyler Stevens had 11 targets last year. I mean, just same group running it back, right? With Norfleet and Stevens. Um, oh, Norfleet, I mean, he did that as a true freshman, which is pretty impressive. So, but let's move over to the offensive line, which I think is, a little bit more important. I mean, this is a good offensive line. And you add
Yeah,
a guy
even
like
though, oh yeah, sorry,
Caden.
you
I was
know,
just going to say Caden Green coming over from Oklahoma. Was he not a captain at Oklahoma as a true freshman for a couple games?
I cannot confirm. I don't know for a couple
I'm
games
pretty
potentially,
sure.
but
I'm pretty sure he was a game captain at least once or twice as a
I know
true freshman.
they were devastated that they lost him, and he's a guy that's got flexibility at guard or tackle. Right, he was recruited as a tackle. He played guard at Oklahoma. He can kind of do both for you, which obviously provides that versatility because you got to replace a guy like Javon Foster at left tackle who's drafted in the NFL. You're losing your left guard as well. But other than that, you've got three returning starters. You've got a JUCO All-American who's probably going to be your sixth guy that can be a swing tackle for you in Javon Richardson. And also you bring in a guy like Marcus Bryant from SMU who was pretty damn good last year. So I think, like you said, they didn't bring any transfers in at wide receiver or tight end because they like that room. They only brought in two, and they are pretty darn good, impactful players for this team.
Yes. And we talked about before, it's not often that you get really good offensive linemen in the transfer portal. These two are really good offensive linemen that were in the transfer portal. All right. And they got both of them, which is phenomenal. Testament to the coaching staff there acquiring that talent. Yeah, I mean, just this is just a really good offensive line. There's nothing else that you can really say about it. This is what I would say is probably a top four offensive line in the SEC probably this year. I don't think that's crazy to say.
No,
I think like Georgia, LSU, Texas are really the teams that are in front of them. I can't think of any other teams off the top of my head that have a better offensive line than this one.
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, even you know whatever number,
It's
whatever
Bama,
argument.
I guess, but like I don't know. This one might. All I'm saying. Oh, Tennessee's got a good offensive line too. I don't know.
Yes, yes. But like you said, like you were talking about earlier, it's gonna help a guy like Marcus Carroll, Nate Noel, Jamal Roberts. It's gonna help these guys find some holes. And even if you're losing a guy like Cody Schrader, who I was a huge fan of, was an absolute stud. But they're gonna open holes for those guys. It's gonna give Brady Cook time in the pocket to let those wide receivers absolutely cook. And obviously, a good O line does wonders for what you can draw up offensively for Drink and Kirby Moore. It is quite the exciting offense I think you got bringing back after even last year.
Correct. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball, where the question marks lie. You lose
Yeah.
Blake Baker in the portal, or not the portal. Sorry, the coach
Coaching
transfer portal.
carousel.
The coaching transfer portal carousel. It's 12 months a year. Which is that fair? I don't know. I don't know how fair that is. But yeah, you bring in Corey Batoon. I mean, actually, he was on the staff before. I think they just promoted him, if I'm correct in that.
No, Batoon's coming from South Alabama.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He
Him
was
and
with
Kane
Kane Womack.
Womack were running
Yep.
that
Yep. 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 Yep.
defense,
Yep.
but he's a guy that I think a
Correct.
lot of people respect. It sounds like he's not changing the defense too much in terms of it'll be a similar scheme, that 4-2-5 that they're used to, which is really, really nice. And I think that's what he's kind of used to as well, which obviously perfect fit. Part of the reason I think why Drink, found a guy like him, Batoon, obviously Womack left. He had Major Applewhite, promoted to head coach, and Batoon comes over after Blake Baker leaves. The dominoes are crazy in the Southeast, right? The dominoes are crazy. It is pretty hard to follow all that. But yeah, Batoon coming from South Alabama.
Yeah, I believe Missouri brought in 16 transfers in this class. 11 of them, I believe, are on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that tells you right away. Um, where the area of concern was for them. I mean, you lose several NFL guys, right? You lose Abrams Drain to the NFL. You lose Ennis Rakestraw to the NFL. You lose Darius Robinson to the NFL. And you got to find
Tyron Hopper too.
Tyron Hopper. Yeah. Good God. Yeah. The point is you lose a ton of production here on this defensive side of the ball, which was vastly improved from years before. Question is like, can they keep that momentum? Like, are they going to be able to score enough points, right? Well, I guess first of all, we'll address whether or not they'll be able to score enough points, but I guess the question is like, how good is this defense going to be? We'll start with the defensive line, bring in 5 transfers on the defensive line. 5. Now, 4 of them have Power 5 experience.
Yeah.
So that's something that's I wouldn't say it's perfect, but like you at least like to see the experience there on the defensive line.
It definitely you pair him with a guy like Johnny Walker, who I thought was pretty damn good for you last year.
Oh yeah.
It's the interior or the defensive line, you've got a lot of depth, which is nice, right? I think interior, you bring back a guy like Christian Williams, who potentially could have, put his name in the NFL draft. That's really nice to get back. Sterling Webb returns as well. I'm sorry, Sterling Webb comes over from New Mexico State. Apologies. Um, but I think at least it gives you some kind of floor. I think you mentioned all those Power Five guys, similar to seniors. Is now how are they going to translate to your scheme? I think a lot is to be lots to be seen, but also you have some kind of general basis. I think you're working with when you have Power Five transfers, and you pair them with a guy like Williams Nwaneri, right? 5-star freak, right? He was one of the
Yeah.
top players in the entire 24/7 sports or any recruiting service, right? He was highly, highly rated, big time win for the staff. And he's a guy that definitely elevates the ceiling of the room. Now, I don't know how much he does that in year one. I think if you're leaning on him, I think that could be of concern. I don't think he's going to redshirt or anything, but I do think um, you don't want to have to rely on him. If he can give you spot plays, right? Flash here and there, find out things that he's really good at or schemes that he likes and fits well in, and you really let him go on third down, maybe, or second and long. But regardless, I think the potential is there for that D line, and they've recruited well as of late too. You got a good amount of talent there, so I think it could be a lot worse. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
But
When you
obviously,
go
yeah. Darius Robinson, I had to mention him. He was big for you last year. That was big for you, and he's a guy you're gonna miss.
first round draft pick, first team all SEC, that dude is a freak. I mean, he is a freak. Yeah, that hurts. That hurts. I mean, you had 3 all SEC defensive players, they all go, and that's not even including Ennis Rakestraw, who was not all SEC last year. It's just brutal, man. But when I go to the linebacking core, right, and Tyron Hopper was an all SEC player last year, you're you still have a decent amount of players that have snaps on Missouri's defense from last year. I'm looking at Chuck Hicks. I'm looking at Tristan Newsom. You also bring over Khalil Jacobs from South Alabama, who was in Corey Batoon's system. If I was to bet on someone to take a jump there, and he was playing as a true sophomore last year, he played really well. I would bet on Khalil Jacobs to take a step in this defense and potentially fill a big need, I think.
Yeah, and also I'll throw another name there, Corey Flagg. That was a guy who popped a couple years ago, back as a freshman at Miami. I mean, he has a lot of starts there in the ACC, and he also provides at least really, really good depth for you. A guy with a ton of experience as well. And then obviously you've got the freshmen, right? Brian Huff, Jeremiah Beasley. It's not a bad room at all. I mean, you're losing a third round pick in Tyron Hopper, and you replace them with Chuck Hicks and Newsom, who's got that familiarity, like you said, in that with Missouri, but also Jacobs, who comes in and it's almost like he played for Missouri last year because he's coming over with the coaching staff.
Yeah, so I don't hate the linebacking room. believe it or not. You lose Tyron Hopper, but I think they got some pieces there that can kind of make up that production in the aggregate. I really do believe that. We'll see, I guess, what Corey Batoon has planned for that linebacking core. I want to head over to the secondary now because you lose two NFL players at cornerback spot, which is, I mean, goodness gracious, in this day and age, that is tough to replace. What are some stuff that you like about the secondary? What are some of your concerns? Who are some players that you like?
It's not like the talent here. Obviously, the headliner that you're bringing in, you only bring in really one transfer, which, like we talked about, they brought in a lot of transfers on this defense, but only one in the secondary, even though you're losing a couple, veteran guys to the NFL. But Toriano Pride, this is a former five-star guy. I think he's a Missouri kid, if I'm not mistaken. So he's coming back home. Obviously, the talent is there. Did he put it together on every single snap at Clemson? No, but he's got his feet wet a good amount there, and it's not a terrible thing. I think you expect him. The expectations are high for him to slide right in and be a very good contributor to your defense. Drayden Norwood, he comes back. He played a good amount last year. It's a former, I believe, Texas A&M guy. Um, but
I like him.
I
He's
guess
pretty good.
yeah, and then Dalen Carroll. I'm sorry, or wow, Dalen Carnell. He was one of your leading snap count guys on your defense last year. Didn't quite grade out the greatest, but he's a guy that's not terrible. You can move him in the box. You can move him in slot. Do some fun things at nickel for him.
Yeah, I do think I don't know. Did I look at these names and I kind of like them, you know? But obviously there is a significant drop off, I believe, from the talent of the guys last year. But is it still crazy to say that like I don't hate the secondary?
No, and it doesn't have to be elite either. I mean, it just has to
No.
be doable. And this defense almost, not that you want it to play like a bend but don't break, but you almost just don't give up big plays, right? Make other teams drive down the distance of the whole distance of the field, right? And just kind of let your offense carry you to a couple wins, right? And that's going to happen if you've got, the talent that they have returning on that side of the ball. But there are some pieces. Obviously, Charleston comes back, which is nice. Burks is an interesting kid, right? Marvin Burks, he's a young kid, which is nice. Marcus Clark, not a ton of experience, but at least he's an older guy in that cornerback room. So there's a nice mix of some returners. You've got some young guys with talent. Obviously, the transfer, the cream of the crop with Toriano Pride. That was a guy that got it early, right? That was one of the first commits. I remember that, back when it was like right around early signing day. I think Toriano Pride, um, they were doing a big thing just because one of the guys 24/7 had coached him in high school. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, Pride's a guy I think they're high on.
Yeah, I am as well. I am as well. So on a scale of concerned to basically elite, right? Where do you think this defense falls on that scale? Like heading into the 2024 season, like are you more concerned or are you less concerned about this defense?
I would be surprised if it takes a step up from last year. And that's a combination of I think you're losing some pretty darn good talent at the coaching level, right? Blake Baker, a couple other guys, and then like you said, those NFL draft picks, they're just not easy to replace. Darius Robinson, leader of your defense, losing Tyron Hopper, leader of that second level. Obviously, you mentioned the secondary guys with Abram Strain and Rakestraw. Like that's not ideal, not ideal at all. But I wouldn't say I'm like super concerned. Like I don't think that this defense is a big enough red flag that I'm not confident that Missouri can accomplish its goals, which by the way, make no mistake, their goal is to make the playoffs. Am I right in that?
Their goal is to make the playoffs. Absolutely. They're over in their win totals at 9.5.
Yeah. 10 wins in the SEC gets you in the playoff this year. I don't want to hear it from everybody else. And I'm not an
Well,
SEC guy, right?
here's the thing. We'll talk about their schedule. Like, if they have two losses on the schedule, you're gonna have to find good wins because it's not coming from their out of conference. I'll tell you that.
Well,
You
we,
know what I'm
we
saying?
mentioned We mentioned their schedule as we did our schedule breakdown, easiest schedules in college football. We took one from our conference, and Missouri was the one in the SEC that we felt was probably was the easiest out of everybody else, and that's awesome for Drink. Now, like you said, you're gonna have to, and we'll get into the schedule, I guess, but you're gonna have to look good, right? Some style points are gonna matter in some games that you're gonna be favored by double-digit points in, and you cannot get blown out by some of the best teams on your schedule.
Let's talk about their schedule. They get Murray State at home, Buffalo at home, Boston College at home, and then Vanderbilt at home to start their season.
Jeez.
So a nice little warm up, and then they get a bye. So they're fresh when they go to Kyle Field to play Texas A&M. They go to UMass and a little home and home. Yeah. And then they play Auburn at home. They go to Alabama. They get a bye. Then they get Oklahoma at home. Then they go on the road for 2 weeks against South Carolina and then Mississippi State. And then they play Arkansas to end the season. And I'm looking at you drew Mississippi State, Arkansas, Vanderbilt on your SEC schedule. Home run.
Can I ask you, what is the toughest 2 game stretch or 2 week stretch of this schedule? I don't really see one. Is it
It's
Auburn and then at Bama,
it
right?
has to be. And which, by the way, Alabama, we talked about it. The weakness of that team potentially is the experience in the secondary, which that Missouri wide receiver core has a lot, you know. And when I'm looking at this over and win total, dude, and I'm looking at it on FanDuel, and it says over 9.5 at a fat plus 146. How can you not take that?
Come on.
I'm gonna have the over on Missouri right here. Before really diving into their deep defense, I was a little bit concerned about their defense, and I thought that there might be a drop off. But with this schedule, even if Brady Cook goes down, I think they can win 9 games, right? But if Brady Cook just stays healthy, man, I see them getting to double-digit wins. I'm going the over 9.5.
I'm with you here. Listen, at A&M, at Bama, it's not going to be easy. Those are 2 tough places to play. You know more than anybody else,
Sure.
right? You've been both those
Lose them.
places.
Sure, lose them.
You're
Lose those two
still
games.
still 10-2, baby. And now, listen, I'll say at South Carolina, that could create some problems if
That
your defensive line, if your
agreed.
front seven isn't quite as good as we think it is. Here's the thing, though. You mentioned that schedule. As you're reading out those out of conference, those first 4, and I'll say 5 weeks with that bye, you have time to figure things out with your new defensive coordinator. You have time to figure things out with your new defensive backfield. I mean, Buffalo with Pete Lembo, God bless Pete Lembo, right? That's one of the worst teams in all of college football. Boston College and Vanderbilt, some of the worst teams in the Power Four, right? And then you get a bye going into A&M. What a treat, right? And I believe is that A&M right after Florida, or is A&M coming off a bye as well?
That is A&M coming off a bye, I think. I got it right here. Hold on. Oh no, that's A&M coming off the trip to Arlington, and then they had the bye right after Missouri.
So it's Florida, then Arkansas, and
It's Florida,
then
Bowling Green, Arkansas, and then Missouri.
yeah. Oh, because week 6. Duh, it's week 6. Yeah, yeah. Okay, my bad, my bad. Regardless, so they could be beat up after that Arkansas game, and I don't know, man. I don't know. Even that Oklahoma game is at home. That's really really nice. Now, could Jackson Arnold and some of those talented players in that wide receiver room there give you some problems? Absolutely, but you also have a bye going into it as well. You can scheme up some nice things. You can figure out, take a reset, do some self scouting, and yeah, I do think 10-2. I believe 10-2 gets you in with wins over Auburn, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and as long as you don't look terrible on road losses to A&M and Bama, I feel pretty good about Missouri. Making the 12 team playoffs at 10-2, but I do think the upside here is 11-1 for sure. And
See, I don't
I
think.
guess
I think they got to win 11 games. I really do.
I guess
Now
we'll see what
poll
happens in the
inertia,
ACC.
poll inertia, right? The idea that your preseason ranking actually has weight on where you end the season is
Yeah.
real. All right, that is real. Poll inertia is a thing. Missouri is going to start pretty highly ranked. I think if they win 10 games, I still don't think it's enough, man. Like, we look at their schedule, dude, like, where are the good wins if they don't beat A&M or Alabama?
It's Oklahoma and Auburn, like I said. But
But
I
like,
do
but
think
like Oklahoma with their schedule, like, where are they going to be
I just
sitting at
have
that
faith.
point?
Well, a couple things have to happen too here, and I hope Missouri fans are enjoying this because I think this is for the first time in a while, right? Since what, 2008, right? I guess 2000, what, 15? Were you guys in the SEC title game last, right? Maybe 14. This, I'm sorry. Let me start over. Missouri actually is going to be in the playoff conversation this year with 12-team playoff, right? Starting from the preseason. I don't know, man. I think something has to happen with the ACC, right? How good is Miami, Clemson, Florida State? If those are three legit teams that maximize their potential, those teams could kick an SEC or a Big Ten team out. How does Michigan and Penn State look in the Big Ten? Right? Is the Big 12 a one bid league? I'm so sorry. A lot of factors have to happen, and that obviously with going from 4 to 12, you have even more factors to account for with more teams, more at large bids. But I don't know, man. I still feel really good about their chances. I listen, their I would like to see their percentage or their odds to make the playoffs.
Plus
And
184.
so 184, and so their over is plus 146.
Correct.
So I guess I'm not a odds guru. I can't do that off the top of my head, but I do think I like the one. Oh, I don't hate that 186 value there, but I'm
So you'd
fine with
rather,
146.
yeah,
I'm fine with 146. Yeah.
to me, because the schedule is weak. Like, right now, it's still probably a top 30 schedule in the country, but again, for the teams that are competing for those playoff spots, there are going to be teams with tougher schedules, better resumes if you only win 10 games. So I would rather take the plus 146 to get them to double digit wins than at plus 184 to win the college football playoffs. Now, if you look at their conference championship odds, Missouri is actually at plus 2,300 to win the SEC. So if you think that they can make
Because
the SEC championship with that schedule, then I would very highly suggest that you would do that, right?
why would you go out?
And then just hedge it in the championship if you're actually that concerned, because like that is way better value. Because if they win 10
Yeah.
games, they're still probably not making the SEC championship, are they? Oh, they
Well,
could.
it depends, and they're not losing out of conference games, I guess. So it's going to be
And
two
serious
losses in
thing,
conference,
Greg
and it's
Sankey, they haven't even announced what the tiebreakers are in the SEC. So,
are they?
um,
That's oh, which
like in case because there's no divisions. So
but
I don't think they've announced what the tiebreakers are.
can I say something too? If you're Missouri and let's say you're 10-2, and I told you you're going to be in the playoff, you're sitting there as the ninth team in the country right there. You're the top one of the top two lost teams in the country. I think you're perfectly content not playing that conference championship game. And that's kind of sad how we are in college football, right? But it's just more chances for stuff to go wrong. You're probably playing a really good Georgia or Texas team, I guess, or even a rematch of Bama and maybe Ole Miss. I guess you could throw them in there too. But I have a hard time seeing Texas, Alabama, Georgia not being in the title game. Regardless, though, I guess I'm kind of rambling on here. We've been talking for Missouri for a while, but I hope you guys enjoyed that. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're a Missouri fan and you're new, right? If you haven't liked and subscribed, I don't know what you're doing. Still watching here, at the end of the video, but regardless, we hope you enjoy.